Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just making sure we're live. Oh yeah, we're live. I think. Are we live? Is it working?
I would check on my phone, but my phone's being
Oh,
used as
there we
my
go.
camera right now. So,
We're live. We're live, and we are back from a pretty long break. Not a lot longer than I ever intended on us actually taking. And I think for so long we were talking about what we were gonna do when we did start streaming again. And I'm like, oh, we should probably just get started and then figure it out because it was taking us way too long to figure it out. I've been busy with work. Saul's been busy with his stuff. And yeah, it's been way too long, I think, personally, but a lot's happened since. That's the funny thing is like so much has changed in this country, Canada and the US. I feel like since we last streamed, and the last live stream we did was in May. So that was right before the election and after the conservative disappoint that happened, but we don't like to talk about that very much. But now, so like Saul, so I've been kind of unplugged lately. I'm not going to lie, just because I've been so focused on work and other things. So what's been going on lately in the circle of politics in Canada and the U.S.?
a lot. I could obviously, no one's going to be surprised if I start saying there's a lot I could talk about with the Trump stuff. But I think that the scene politically in Canada has changed a lot over the past, since the election as well. We're at a point now where we got two conservative MPs that have crossed the aisle to the other side. Poilievre's got his leadership review coming up in January. Um, I mean, I think he started off okay. I think we were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started recording. How do you feel about how things have been going just on his side? Like as an opposition leader, how have you felt about his what he's been doing?
Well, I think he's doing what an opposition leader needs to do, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to see him be anything but an opposition leader um, to this point, really,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like that people in Canada and like the British parliamentary system, like the opposition's job is just to scrutinize the sitting government, right? And to vote against whatever they don't agree with, do exactly what he's been doing. I know some people think he's a little hateful and aggressive, but I just look at it as like, you know what, this guy's just saying what he thinks, is how I take it. And I think that's some quality I wish we had more of in politicians. And I think the funny thing is that I think that's kind of what hurt him in the last election was being too blunt and upfront about how he feels about things. So I think that's, you got to take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But I would like to see more of that. Carney definitely a step up from Trudeau. However, I don't think he's quite what this country needs right now. Like we're moving forward, but I think we could be moving forward a little bit faster under a different administration. A lot of it's not just because Carney, it's because his whole party, right? It's still the same people that were involved in so many different scandals that happened over Trudeau's era. Like you think about the Randy Boissonnault, the other Randy, and numerous other situations of just corruption, nepotism, people scratching each other's backs behind closed doors that I think really damaged people's trust in the Liberal administration. Clearly not enough where they still won the election just because of Carney alone. Honestly, if Carney hadn't come to the ring, Polyev would have won by a
Yeah.
landslide, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, he was at a 25-point lead in January this year, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it is really crazy how things have turned around. I think obviously, people get a little bit upset about it when you talk about it. I feel like I've had family members who have gotten, and friends too, people who kind of think that everything's a little too focused on what Trump is doing and what's going on in America, as opposed to focusing on maybe something that's happening here, some kind of scandal that's going on with Carney. I think for the most part, something that's a little bit different right now is, and I heard, I'm going to steal this point from our favorite panel host, David Cochrane. He said that the
Your favorite panel
reaction,
host. Sorry, I
the
lost
rea-
I lost some
friend of
respect for him.
friend of the stream, David Cochrane. Um, he was saying that the reaction from Carney when Polyev kind of makes these, he's pretty good at doing like political, people they were calling Jagmeet Singh Stuntman Singh. I remember that, but Polyev, I feel like he's also pretty good at like the political
Yeah, I
scene,
miss
right?
those days though. I miss those days of just
It was a simpler
making
time.
fun of Jagmeet and Trudeau. It was very obvious of who was in the wrong, who was an idiot, and who wasn't. And I think that's where Polyev gained so much popularity and attention from that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that, even before Carney stepped in, I was on stream saying like, if Trudeau runs again, it won't even be an endorsement of Polyev so much as I just thought this guy's got to get out of here because he's doing more damage to the party. And I think that there could be worse leaders. I'm not gonna say I loved everything Trudeau. I actually didn't like Trudeau for like the most part, right? But I think that once, if he had stayed in, I wouldn't have voted for him. I probably would have just voted for Polyev as like a better
I don't know
just
one
an
person
alternative
who would
to
have voted for
seeing.
Trudeau. Like, I don't know anybody who would, like, besides people who hated Polyev that much. Like, everyone's afraid he's going to be like Trump. You know, no one actually, like, I feel like had really much of an honest opinion about him. I feel like most people didn't pay attention to what he said. I feel like most people were just like, you know, I'm not talking about you specifically, and I have other friends who did pay attention to what he was saying. They're like, oh, he's so hateful. All he does is speak all this hate towards people. It's like, well, you listen to what he says. Like, yeah, there is some of that in there, but it's not all that. And what's so different with Trudeau? How is Trudeau any different? And Carney really isn't much different in that respect either. He just does it in more of a gentleman way, right? He's more like, I
Well,
don't
that's what I
really
was gonna
think
say.
that, you know what I mean? It's like this very like
I never gave the
way
Cochrane
different approach to it.
the Cochrane point was that Carney doesn't respond to Polyev's stuff as much as Trudeau. Trudeau would get genuinely like really upset and like be kind of fighting back, and he would just be like struggling to think of things he could attack Polyev with, right? Like, oh, you're embracing white supremacists in your movement, and like he would just kind of like be stuttering and not know what to say. And I think Carney, it's not even that he's like particularly
I forgot
witty.
to tell you, sorry to cut you off, but the stream bit rate is off. Did you manually set it properly to 6800? Just a quick side note.
The bit rate's at 2500 on mine. Do you want to put it to 68?
Oh yeah, put it at 6800. That way people can get HD.
Okay, there you go.
All right, that should fix it. But yeah, like, and by the way, if you guys are watching, you got any questions, throw it in the chat there. We're happy to answer and talk about this as well. But yeah, sorry to cut you off there. If you want to continue on your, I'm not going to call it a tangent, but
no, well, it kind of just talking about the moment here. I'm saying it, Carney, he just doesn't really respond to it. So there was this thing that happened recently, and I didn't even look into it that much because it wasn't that interesting to me. But basically, Polyev, they tabled a bill. And it was a pipeline bill, I guess, where they mirrored a lot of the language that was in I can't remember what it's called. It's like a memorandum or something that Carney did with the provinces. He did with Danielle Smith specifically. And then when the Liberals voted down the Conservative bill, the Conservatives were like, oh, did you read the bill? Like, this is exactly the same wording that's in your guys' memorandum. Looks like you guys didn't actually want that stuff. And it's like, well, these things are a complete package, right? Like, you can't, if you took all of the stuff out of the memorandum and put it into a bill, you might have gotten them to vote for it. But I mean, there's this thing, I feel like Polyev misses an opportunity a lot of the time, because like that recent budget bill, that had like tons of stuff, tons of things that Polyev campaigned on doing, right? He's got like massive investments in energy and like literally like initiatives for pipelines. And like, it's just things that I don't think that Polyev really has a reason to oppose. And instead of like kind of grabbing that and saying, hey, you guys like my ideas, I got a bunch more. If Carney wants to have a meeting with me, I'll be happy to give him a bunch more things he can put inside of these bills, right? And kind of playing that angle as more like, I'm the ideas guy, and they're literally copying my ideas because I'm coming up with like original idea, you know, whatever. Just play some kind of angle where like you're kind of trying to say how these guys don't have any good ideas. I'm the one, they're getting all their good ideas from me. Instead, he goes on this thing where he's trying to point out all the bad stuff in the spending bill. And I just think that like, I just think you could look a lot stronger. You could make yourself look a lot more leader-like because right now there is, I think, a real appetite for kind of like, not for everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of people on the fringes who don't want any cooperation between the parties. But I think a lot of like the more normal people in the country right now, they're nervous. The economy is, we're at the whims of America with our economy. Like there's a lot of things that are rapidly changing. Like I think we were talking, I don't even think.
Well, yeah, well, just with the tariffs, right? Just like the whole tariffs, like where I live up here, like way in northern Canada, there's, you know, the mills are shutting down left and right because of these wood tariffs, right? And like these are actually affecting people so far from the border as well, not just people live along the border. And I don't really see the long game here anymore. All I'm seeing is Canada kind of suffering from it all, right?
Yeah, and well, even the thing like the de minimis exception that they had, America had this thing where anything under $800, you didn't have to pay duties on it, and they got rid of that. So like, I ordered something the other day, and it came to my door. UPS shows up at my door, and they wanted to charge me $60, and I'm in like this dispute with them now because I'm like, this is insane. It's like more than half the price of the thing I bought. I'm not going to pay $60
of all the
in duties.
countries to do this with, Canada just never made much sense. It's more of just some weird vendetta.
Yeah, like that's I mean, obviously we don't have to get too into the American like his economic policy is just, it's nonsense to me. Like, I mean, I think it's stupid.
No, it's fine. I'm not a big fan of Trump, honestly. Like, I feel like most Canadians aren't anymore just because of all the economic damage he's causing to us, right? Like, even those who used to support him, like he's changed a lot, I feel like, since he's gotten into office. And like someone I was talking to the other day was like, no, yeah, I'm like, honestly, he kind of 180'd quite a bit when he got into office. It was almost just like okay, like he just started.
I think he's doing everything he said he was going to do.
Right.
Everybody just
but in a way he's not though because he said he was going to make America affordable again. Like, there's so many clips of him saying that, and he's actually doing the opposite. Grocery prices are going up. Like,
affordability isn't a real thing. It's a scam. Affordability. He's like, they keep on talking about affordability. This is like it's a fake, is like a stupid word. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, he's just lining his own pockets, honestly, is why I look at it now.
Yeah. The corruption right now is so, I mean, the Trump coin in itself is enough for me where I'm like, okay, this is just literally like a slush fund for him to get donations from whoever he wants at any time, completely anonymously. Nobody, there's people who are investing in his companies and then getting pardons for like huge federal crimes. There's the recent thing where he's striking. I don't want to get into it that much. Striking the Venezuelan boats because they're drug boats, and then he also pardoned some big drug kingpin guy. It's just like, it's nonsense. It's stupid to me. Like, I just think that everything's. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked on that. What I was trying to say is that there's a real appetite for like calm and like a return to normalcy in Canada. I think specifically, like, obviously there's that appetite in the States as well. I mean, it wasn't enough to win an election last year. I guess they wanted to go back to Crazy Town, but we were hungry for that. And I think that, like, I don't know, Polyev, like, I think that, yeah, like I said, just wasted potential. Like, I think that he seems smarter than the way he kind of responds to things sometimes. Like, I think he's a lot more he should strategize before he responds to things a little bit more. Cause I just think, yeah, like the way he handles some of these things, I don't know. I just don't think he's doing himself any favors. He just looks like he's bitter, and he's basically absolutely refusing to work with anybody who isn't in his party. And he's calling people who cross the aisle traitors, and they've betrayed the people who, well, not, I don't think he used that exact language.
Yeah.
But saying he's betraying the riding. The reality is Michael Maw, my dog's barking.
We have someone in the chat here, bring up a point here. Just for the record, I'm not a big Carney fan personally. Like, I think he's a step up from Trudeau, but I personally think that we would have been better off with Polyev taking the reins after the last election, but it might have saved Polyev's career. No, like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone likes to bring up he lost his own riding, but no, everybody leaves out the fact that the riding was redrawn up in 2023, right? And he, I think, knew he wasn't going to win it just because of the demographic changes. And it makes a lot more sense of his approach to it and why he spent a remarkable little amount of time there. Everyone likes to frame it like, oh, he just thought he'd win that riding because he's so cocky. But it's like, I really don't think that's what it was. He seems too smart for that, in my opinion. But yeah, like, I've been following this now for, like, I think going on since like early 2023. I basically taken a bit of a break after the election, just because it was a lot. We were streaming like up to 5 days a week sometimes up until the election happened there. And I feel like for me as a conservative, it was kind of demoralizing because I was like, really, after all that whole era of Trudeau, we're just doing another lap of liberal? Like, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I will give liberals a little bit of credit, people who voted for Carney, that he was a step up from Trudeau, 100%. But
yeah, for people who aren't like super politically aligned, nice.
Yeah,
for people who aren't super like on one side or another, I think Carney was just like a safe option. He seemed safe. You know, he was
that's what I heard from
political outsider, but I mean, he's been he's a governor of the Bank of Canada and the governor of the Bank of England. He obviously knows a lot of these.
Yeah,
people.
But like,
he's aware at least vaguely aware of how these things work. I mean, we'll see. The proof is going to be in the pudding, right? We'll see how well he handles his
Well, the
tenure.
fact
I
that
think if he
Poilievre's
gets,
still in charge of his party says a lot, I think, personally.
well,
And like,
next month we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Things aren't. I
who's
think
going to
that
replace him? Like, who would
I
they
don't
run?
know.
Like, there's
Well,
nobody who
well,
can
that's
compete
the thing is they'll
with his
have a
charisma,
leadership.
right? Like,
If he has to step down, then they have a leadership race after that, right?
yeah, but
I
what?
don't actually know if that's
Like Andrew Scheer's going to take the reins again and just not win again. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing is, like, I don't think there's anyone
yeah.
really who
Here.
could take the reins who can do better than Poilievre can in terms of talking to the public and representing the party, right? The whole selling point is, hey, we're not the liberals, right? We're a different party. We're the conservative party who's honestly been responsible for a lot of the time. We get into kind of this whole financial hole with the liberals, all the way going back all the way to World War II. We've had these situations. People like to argue about this. I have friends
Here.
who are like,
Sorry,
well,
give me 1 sec. I'm just gonna let my.
yeah, no worries. I'm just
gonna
going to keep ranting here. But, I have friends who are like saying that, like, well, the conservatives, all they do is just cut all this social support and then say, look, we made the budget better. But it's like, honestly, they tend to kind of walk us a few steps backwards down the social ladder a little bit when it comes down to all the social support Canada has. It's great we have that. It's great we have that compared to the US. We seem to have a lot more safety nets in place, which I agree with. But I think it gets to a point where it's almost overboard, right? Like the whole dental care thing was an example of one. They were talking about the school lunch program. Like all these things are great. But at the same time, if we're broke, if we're absolutely broke, there's no money, we're just in a big hole of debt. Are these the things we should be focusing on right now when it's like, shouldn't we be trying to cut costs as much as we can, get ourselves out of this debt, and then start implementing policies like that, right? And this is what the Conservatives have done in Canadian history, going back to World War II. After Mackenzie St. Laurent, after he was out of office, right? Like, I think that was his name, Mackenzie St. Laurent. Right after World War II, he was in place. They put in this big housing plan initiative. But it wasn't until the Conservatives came into power did that initiative really take full swing and actually work, and then led to some of the best economic states that we've had in a long time. And I do give credit to like the whole thing with Harper when he was in office, where the Canadian dollar was actually at par with the American dollar, did have to do with the American dollar being so devalued due to their financial crisis in 2008. But if you look at the pattern over history, we've always had a bit of a back and forth, right? But we've never had liberals in power for this long. Wasn't a politic in the Harper time, but he seems like way better option than the current liberal. Honestly, I feel like, yeah, like he is a lot better in that case. Oh, Northwest Coast, welcome back, buddy. So what should we cut? At this point, like I said, I've been a bit of under a rock here, so I'd have to get back to you on that question. I got a lot of homework to do, as me and Saul have been talking about. But in terms of like what I'm talking about with spending, like Carney is a step up from Trudeau. He's got a more fiscal mindset, but it's not just him, right? It's the fact that he couldn't win a majority. It's the fact that his party is still the same party that was.
We'll see. We'll see, because you
basically
need
the same
one
party.
one more floor crosser, and then we got a majority.
Yeah, well, we got to keep an eye on how much these guys make next year and what their net worth goes up to after they cross that aisle, if that's the case.
Well, that's a good thing. If everybody's net worth goes up, as long as it's not just theirs.
Yeah, like I know people talk about foreign aid. Like foreign aid is necessary in a lot of cases, because you have to look at like foreign aid is our way of trying to hold the balance a little bit. It sucks of what Trump is doing, because by cutting foreign aid, by doing these things that he's doing, it's going to allow other governments, like other people that we should be keeping an eye on, to kind of build up more, right, and become more of a threat over time to having a, like, because like as Canadians, I feel like we want America to remain number one in the world. Otherwise, we're kind of screwed. Like we rely on them heavily, and these tariffs is a great example of how intertwined we are. And thankfully, there's some automotive exemptions, so that's not being hit as hard. But lumber is a great example. They're trading with 45% tariffs last I looked. I don't know if it's changed since, but 45% on hardwood. I think it was hardwood, for wood, right? And it's causing mills thousands of kilometers away from the border to shut down. And it's killing towns, because these towns are like mill towns, and they rely on like 3 or 4 mills and like 6,000 people, and you have over 2,000 of them working at all the mills. And it's like, it's just killing them. And they were already kind of in rough shape before the tariffs came into play. But the tariffs are really the nail in the coffin in that situation. I think we will have a floor crosser after the C leader review, and it's possible, right? Like I said, it's impressive if Poilievre can hold on to all this. If he can hold onto this party, if he can remain leader and take them the next election, and the polls are looking good, which honestly, the polls, I know it's so far from an election, so they're kind of skewed. But last I looked, they weren't doing too bad, because people, a lot of people I think don't understand how this stuff works fully. And they think, oh, things are bad, so we're going to put this guy in charge and things are going to get better right away. And I think there was a lot of people like that who voted for Carney as well. And I
Yeah.
think they're not seeing that change happen very quickly. So I think that's kind of where they're starting to sour on Carney a little bit. Oh, hey,
I
Charlene,
think
welcome back. It's been a long time no see. Well, I guess we've been gone forever, but
yeah, I'm surprised there's people back in the chat. There's that guy
yeah,
I
it's awesome.
saw him say, Nick63 saying something about foreign aid might be a hot take, and it's like, buddy, you should have seen our chat before. We used to have a pretty conservative dominated chat, so that's not
well, like
that hot of a
even
take
I was streaming most of the time, and I'm pretty conservative minded in a lot of senses. But like I've changed my tune on some things over the last 6 months, just kind of seeing how things have played out. And Trump getting into office is a great way, and all the stuff he's done to show people what that style of leadership can lead to, like such as global isolation, what that leads to. That actually makes your economy worse in this day and age because people are used to relying on cheaper goods from overseas, especially in North America. And even then, like all this tariff bullcrap led to China changing the number one canola suppliers, right? And things like
Yeah.
that. So they were buying like they have 1 billion people. They were buying a lot of canola, and now that's just not happening.
Yeah. There's a lack of appreciation, I think, for how these trade things, like these global trade things, obviously there's a lot of downsides. Like there is going to be things where certain industries are going to have a harder time competing on a global scale, right? The reality of the world is that most other people are trading with each other because it's a good way to get access to cheaper goods, right? Like as much as we don't have a hard appreciation for that, there's a lot of places in the world where things are just like way more expensive if you don't have access to outside markets, right? Like we should be having high levels of specialization in your economy is a good thing. You don't want a whole bunch of your people to go back to working in like sewing factories and mines and like those are really low. Like an economy doesn't have to be that developed to have those types of jobs. Like when you're at the level where you're assembling the car as opposed to like mining the ores they use to smelt the cars, you're making more money, your people are making more money, your economy's making more money, right? Like the base level like resource gathering and stuff I'm not going to say it's like a bad career or whatever, but I'm just saying that like there's a reason that these jobs kind of tend to gravitate towards poorer countries.
If you also look at like what happened in the gold rush, it wasn't the people mining the gold that made the most money. It was the people selling the tools to mine the gold that made the most money, right? People selling the shovels, the pickaxes, all that stuff. They were making the most money when it came to the gold rush. And I think that's something to keep in mind as well with like to your point, like I'm agreeing with you. But yeah, I just think that this idea of that, like we can make everything we have here, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, you want to be making more here, but at the same time, like I feel like a lot of people, the way they've been able to stabilize things by keeping certain goods the prices they are for years, they have eventually gone up, is by ordering from overseas where they don't have the same restrictions we do and the same demands of compensation of wages and stuff, right? And like, yeah, like obviously it'd be better if everyone got paid a fair wage in the whole world for what they did, but like whatever happened, like to me, it's just like, like cell phones, right? Like most cell phones today are like what, $1,000 to $1,500 for like a high end good phone. Those would be a lot more if they were all manufactured here and we were doing everything here. Like they wouldn't be as cheap. We wouldn't have like basically people with no education putting them together and just do it. You'd have some kind of system here. Probably need like electrical engineering degrees and stuff to put them together here, all that kind of stuff, right? So I feel like that's an example of something where we're so used to it being way more affordable than it would be if we did make it here, right? And there's other things too, like think like shoes, clothes, like all that kind of stuff. Like obviously we want it made here, but if we weren't using the cheap base products from countries like China or India, like in terms of like polyester and stuff like that, I feel like we wouldn't be wouldn't
like
be as happy, right? We'd probably just find reasons to complain about that at the end of the day.
The people making those shoes, they don't get to own multiple pairs of shoes, like that's a luxury. And there's a lot of things like it's stuff people take for granted, right? Even the trade stuff with America, for us to kind of just be able to account on that for so long and never really have to worry about not having access to that market. And now we're in a situation where our economy is extremely reliant on them. And it turns out that that wasn't a guarantee. That wasn't something that was guaranteed to us. And yeah, I think that something that Trump is people are gonna see it throughout. I mean, not everybody's gonna know who to attribute it to, but there's gonna be a lot of fallout from a lot of the stuff they broke, right? Like, I mean, the US aid stuff alone is like it's going to be millions of people are going to die from that being cut just because of the amount of money that was going into treating like diseases around the world and stuff, right? Like this is a good thing for humanity. It's not just a good thing for that country, you know, like you don't want those diseases to spread outside of those communities and like end up coming here and stuff, right? Like, I mean, it's again, it's just stuff we take for granted. We take for granted that there isn't like mass outbreaks of HIV and stuff, right? Like,
so what else did you want to talk about tonight? Because I know you had a few topics, and I said, I've been living in the dark a little bit. I've been really busy with work. I've been building a business from the ground up, which is finally kind of taken off a bit, and I've just been so consumed by that, like day and night, between being a husband and a father too. It's just been my whole life's been consumed by everything but politics the last like 5 months. But I want to get the rust off and get back into it here. So what else has really been going on? Because like I've heard stuff from you, I've heard stuff from friends, I've watched a few updates on what's been happening. But like what else has been going on in the political sphere here in North America that you want to talk about?
I mean, like I don't know how deep I want to get into the reads on everything today, because I mean I could go off, like I was starting touching on little things like the US aid and like the trade stuff. I mean, Trump still doesn't have any actual written out, fully penned out deals, right? I see people who are giving Carney a hard time for not having a trade deal yet. It's like, well, nobody has a trade deal yet. You know, I think the closest country to one right now is Sweden, and even they haven't fully like fleshed out all the details and stuff. And, you know, there's obviously a problem with over promising with every politician. Trump was saying he was going to have 80 deals in 80 days, you know. Carney was saying he was going to have the trade stuff figured out by June or July. Right?
Yeah, that
and it's like, it's not going to be that easy.
It's not going well.
Yeah, and I mean, I would hope that as people, I can give Carney a little bit of leeway for this, just because he hadn't actually worked as prime minister before, and you know, like I said, it's not like he's working with someone who's super easy to make a deal with. This guy's got kind of ridiculous things that are lines in the sand for him. And I think it largely is because I don't think Trump has like a coherent economic policy in his head. I think he's got a lot of different voices around him. He's got like JD Vance and Stephen Miller and what's his name, Scott Bessent, and all these people, Pete Hegseth, and like people that are really close and in his inner circle who are giving him advice on these things, right? And they're conflicting sometimes. I think there's like, you see a lot of rifts forming in that coalition right now, right? Even stuff like Israel, obviously, is like super controversial. Some people are super in favor of supporting Israel. Some people are super against it for different reasons. You know, I mean, some people on the far left and the far right seem to be blaming a certain ethnic group for all of the world's problems right now. I've seen a huge rise in that. I don't know. I mean, as somebody who hasn't been as knee deep, like I've been paying pretty much the same amount of attention as I was before. Although I'll admit, like to that guy in the chat's point, it is harder to follow right now because there's less big bombastic things happening, right? It's like Carney's going and making some kind of scaffolding for a deal with the EU, right? Like that's good, I guess. You know, he's got this memorandum thing with Danielle Smith. That's really good to see. I was happy to see that. I think that's a very good, like, a good leader image to project out, that this is the person who's probably the furthest ideologically from Mark Carney, and that he was able to get her together and sign on to something with him and say, yeah, we're going to both work to get like some energy extraction out of Alberta and something going like a pipeline.
At least he's willing to work with her for sure. Like, and I'd hope the same if Paul ever got into power, he'd be working with everybody, no matter how liberal they were. And in that sense too, I hope that the leader of the country is willing to work with all the premiers, right, for the sake of the Canadian people. That's something you'd want to see in a leader, 100%. And sure. I'm glad that's happening, right? But it was also the whole thing with him and Wab Kinew, right? He was saying he'd work with Wab Kinew on things if he got into power. And Wab Kinew is like the furthest left party there is, right? Like NDP, I think is one of the farthest left parties that we have in Canada. Even then, we don't have any like real true fully left-wing parties. Like we have the Liberals, which are arguably center left, and then we have I think the NDP.
They're pretty far left.
Like Jagmeet Singh was talking about universal basic income, but I don't even know if that's still the same thing that they're on right now, or like what it was, right? Like,
I think
that was just Jagmeet Singh's version of the party.
Yeah, I think that style of politics is falling out of favor right now. It's just, anything that's too, this is what happens with populism, right? As populist leaders, they'll rise up, they fail to promise on all their promise, or fail to meet their promises, and then everybody loses faith and they stop voting for whoever. They just don't care anymore, right? Like they just disengage. So I was gonna ask you though, as somebody,
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, sorry. What?
I was just gonna. I mean, if you have something you want to say, I was just gonna ask you like a question.
Well, I was just saying, yeah. Even for me after the election, I felt like just disengaging for a while, just because it's like we kind of know what's gonna happen now for the next while, right? And like I was surprised Carney took a full summer break. Honestly, I was expecting more of a damage control for his image, right? And that was one thing Poilievre, I think, really appealed to people, where he was like, well, we're going to work through the summer. If we get into office, we're going to force all the MPs to work through the summer. And it's like, yeah, you should be working all year round. Like, why do you have more than like 4 weeks vacation a year max? Like, that's just ridiculous, right? And I think that's something that we should be looking at in our leaders in general, allowing them to have that much time off. It's the same thing with Congress in the States, right? They have something like 100 days off a year. So it's like, I feel like, why are they off
I don't
so
really
much?
understand.
You know what I mean? There's so much to do.
Hours.
Like these countries are kind of a mess. I think it goes back to old policies when it used to take like 2 weeks to travel to Ottawa on horseback from wherever you lived.
So you get to go home for the holidays
or train. Yeah. I think that's what it was. But it's something that definitely needs to be changed, because I feel like it's kind of outdated. You can get there in a flight and in a few days now, tops, even no matter where you live in this country, and that's taking your time. But anyways, what was your question?
As somebody who's not as engaged in the media right now, do you think you feel more cynical or more hopeful than you did at the start of the year right now?
Well, I feel like probably more hopeful to a degree about the future, because I'm kind of, after disengaging, I kind of look at it back. I'm like, you know what? This is just kind of it's not the end of the country if Carney gets in office. I think if anything, we might not make things much better very quickly. But I do think that, I still stand by my original opinion of like, it's not even just the liberal ideology. It's this liberal party as a whole, right? Doesn't matter if Carney's in charge, but the whole party, like, I don't think enough of the MPs have really changed. It's almost the same cabinet at points, like almost the exact same cabinet Trudeau had.
Stephen Guilbeault's gone now. He resigned.
Yeah, Stephen Guilbeault. Yeah, but like, what about Philippe Champagne? What about Freeland? What about all these people? Randy Boissonnault had to step down himself. Like, they weren't going to even get rid of him.
The front-facing face of the Liberal Party has changed. They're presenting themselves a lot more centrist than Trudeau was. Like by so far, it's not even like can't even really emphasize it enough, because I think that Trudeau, he leaned in, like there was not a lot of daylight between Trudeau's style of politics and I liked Trudeau more than I liked Jagmeet Singh. I think Jagmeet Singh I hate him so much, but it's just because of the political posturing, and I hate when people take advantage of people not understanding how the parliamentary system works. His whole like ripping up the deal 5,000 times thing that he did. And it's just like, dude, like literally all of your
those are good times to watch that unfold, like it's just like
all of that guy's achievements though were through the Liberals. And it's like,
even Mark Holland took credit for the one thing he did, which was the Pharmacare Act, right? Which had to do with like the dental care and the birth control stuff, I think it was, and stuff like that. Like that was Mark Holland just took all the credit for that and accredited it all to the Liberals, right? And I think that's kind of what happened. But at the same time, that's what happens when your whole career is based off some coalition that should never have happened, right? And I think people wouldn't be so angry at the Liberals in general if that. But the thing is, it's like it almost felt like we had no control over our own government, right? At least that's how I felt. I felt like our say didn't really matter, and this is just what we have to deal with, basically. That's how it felt at the time.
The reality is that the NDP is a vote splitter for the Liberals, right? Like Maxime Bernier is not pulling away from the CPC as much as Jagmeet Singh was pulling away from the Liberals, right? And I think that's a good thing for the Liberals in some ways. But you got to, like, there is a lot of people who are like a little bit, they barely pay attention to politics. They're just like, they're vaguely in favor of like social justice policies, and they like unions, and the NDP was historically a good union party, so they just always vote NDP, right? And the Liberals now, they have this ability because of how, Trudeau didn't use this, but if you have that far left party, you're able to kind of posture yourself as the center party. And most people, when you talk to them, like not people who are really engaged with politics, but most people don't, they don't claim one way or the other. They're like, oh, I think both parties are corrupt, and I don't even think we get to choose who the leaders are, and I don't know if voting even matters. You know, like most normal people are like who are not super engaged. They're not really in line with one or the other. I think that's changed quite a bit. It's in the Trump era, like the last 10 years, but there is still a sizable amount of the population who on the weeks coming up to voting day, they don't even know who's running. They don't know what the parties are called. They don't know what they stand for. They're like asking their family members, oh, who should I vote for? What are these people promising? And it's like, well, it's hard to even get started on it, right? It's like, there's a lot of,
there's a lot of like family pressure too. Like I think with my family and like, you know, on like my wife's side and stuff. And like, they came to visit shortly after the election and was just, you know, asking me those questions about this. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, like, this is what I would have done. I'm like, oh, why? Like, oh, would you know, you can't trust him. I'm like, oh, but you can trust the other guy for some reason. Like, they're both politicians. Like, why would I trust, you know, the whole thing is I feel like people get this like emotional attachment to who they want to vote for as well.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it through a lens of like, okay, like, who's going to lead this country in a better direction, or the direction that I want to see this country go in, right? And I think the economy was a huge focus for so long. And I feel like, you know, things don't seem like they're they seem like they are stabilizing a little bit. But the tariffs itself, I think, really, if it wasn't for the tariffs, we'd probably feel more stable than we do right now.
I don't know if Carney would have done as well if Trump hadn't been so aggressive right off the bat with the tariffs. I think that scared a lot of people.
Well, he did, but he also endorsed Trump. But I don't think a lot of people even cared for that. They just twisted that to kind of fit the way that they looked at it, right?
Endorsed Carney. Trump endorsed.
Yeah, sorry. Trump endorsed Carney, right? So he said, "Oh, I wouldn't vote for Poilievre because I think Poilievre would have given him a harder time, or would have
it's the same way
probably played ping pong, so to speak." And I don't know if it would have went very well for us either. It could have caused the state to get more aggressive with us. I don't know for sure. It's hard to tell because we never got to that point, right? Like, I feel like
I don't even know if Trump knows what the difference is between the Canadian parties, though, right? He's not meeting Mark Carney and being like, I
think it was just who he liked more. This is
Kamala Harris of Canada, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, he wasn't quite, I wouldn't quite call him the Kamala Harris of Canada. I think that's a little bit of a low blow. But, you know, Kamala Harris was just unappealing and uncharismatic, right? Like, that's why no one voted for her. And I don't, you know, I think that's why she lost. And, like, arguably, I think people, again, the common element is wanting change, feeling frustrated. So they're willing to take whoever gives them the best sales pitch. And that was Trump.
Kamala Harris was it's hard you can't like present yourself as something different. And also like she didn't have that long to run. And she kind of had to like differentiate herself from Biden, but not because she was a part of that administration. So it was like really hard for her to like stake any real differences in the ground. And it's not like she wanted to stab him in the back either. Like she obviously supported his administration. I mean, this might be an actual hot take. I think Joe Biden was like an amazing president. I think he passed so much legislation. A lot of it was bipartisan. He was really good at working across the aisle and like working to get things done. A lot of all the new factory jobs that are happening in the States right now, those are from Biden's CHIPS Act. It's not even anything, but this is the thing with politics, right? Is that somebody made another really good point. I was listening to an interview the other day and they were saying how Obamacare got where it was because they announced the policy and within a year that was enacted. People were getting their cards and stuff in the mail. Joe Biden's it was arguably like, it was like a huge contribution to the ACA. It was like he was reducing the cost of a bunch of these drugs, but it's not even going to come into effect until next year. So Trump's going to get the credit for it, right? And it's like these types of things are really hard where like just enacting a policy itself isn't the same as like getting it done. And unless you can draw that line for people, like say, this is something that we campaigned on, this is something we've accomplished at the end of the term, it's really hard to get that message out to the public, even if you are successful. So, you know, if you do get a lot of legislation passed, but nothing's even going to actually come into effect for another 2 years at the election, no one's going to give you any credit for it, right? And I mean, I would argue maybe you don't, I mean, unless somebody's like a huge policy wonk, they're not going to even understand how you did contribute to that, right? I think that's a huge barrier when you're coming at politics as wanting to build something as opposed to just wanting to break something. And politics, like Donald Trump's politics has been, he literally like tore apart the East Wing of the White House, right? Like this is something that, and as much as people will criticize him for that, that's something people can see it. He's doing things, you know, he's moving stuff around. he's got hammers and nails all going at the White House even, and there's these tariffs are in effect, and when people can see stuff happening, it's a lot easier for them to like believe those leaders when they talk about things, I think. And I think that that's something that the Democrats were really bad at, is they were not able to kind of draw that causal link between their administration and the things that were happening. And yeah, also they were suffering from the economy was not doing good when Joe Biden took over, and it was trending up, but it wasn't fully recovered yet when Donald Trump got elected. Like, I think the stock market was at an all-time high, but that's every stock. It's always at an all-time high at the end of every president's term. So it doesn't really mean anything, right?
Yeah, no. And I think like you are right in that sense of like, there wasn't a lot all people saw when Biden was president was, oh, he's losing his mind. That's pretty much it.
And the media, Republicans dominated on getting their message out and making Biden look at they were trimming videos. So there's this one video where he's waving or saluting these soldiers off in the distance, and they cut off one side of the video so it looks like he's just wandering around in a field. And Trump's posting it on his Truth Social. And the thing is reality is what people think.
I forgot about all those, how what the media sphere was at that time. Like, it's honestly kind of funny thinking back to it, because it has changed a lot since. But like, that's the thing what's kind of crazy too, is like you have him. It almost seems like that they're becoming more pro censorship than they were when Biden was in charge, right? Because it's almost like the way like the censorship's flipped sides, so to speak, right? And it's just kind of ironic. I've noticed over the last while too. But I don't know if anyone in the chat has any questions. We could start doing a bit of a Q&A here. I'll start right here. Yeah, if you guys have any questions in the chat, we'll answer them. But yeah, like in terms of like how things are going now, like I said, I just wish this, like, I just still don't understand the trade war. Like, why have this trade war to begin with? Why have the tariffs to begin with? Like, what have they really accomplished?
Oh, if we really want to get, I guess we're asking the chat for questions right now, but I think there's a lot of like people kind of reckoning with like, and this is what I said earlier, that Trump has done a lot of the things he said he was going to do. And like, they're like deporting veterans and stuff, like, I don't know how common that is, but Kirsty Noem was in the Senate or whatever.
Deporting veterans. How are they deporting veterans?
They deported some guy from, I think he was from Korea, and he was like, he fought in, and got shot twice. He was a veteran, but I guess he'd like had PTSD or something. So he had like a criminal record, and they deported him because he wasn't born in America. And it's like, there's a whole bunch of like, yeah, just weird. Maybe it's possible. Like, I don't understand how that happens. That's the thing. I don't even know how they're deporting people who have their green cards. But they're going crazy, over there. And like, did you read about, I don't even want to get into some of the stuff, but anybody who hasn't, you should look into what happened in those prisons in El Salvador. There was a bunch of Venezuelans that got shipped over there. They were being told they were going to go back to their own country, and they got shipped to El Salvador, and they went into a prison, and they all got like tortured. There's one guy who was like sexually assaulted in there, like by the guards and stuff, like super, super detailed. They had like there was the reporters who reported on it from the New York Times, but they hired like a third party who interviewed all of them separately and said that this is like, and they went to I think they had some kind of way to talk to people at the prison as well. And it was like, the stories were consistent throughout, that there was like this place where they would like bring like an open place that they would chain people up in the middle. It was called the Island. And yeah, they were like chaining people up outside in the cold. And I don't know. It's really real. I don't even want to like get super into it, but there's a lot of, you can read, there's a New York Times article about it. There's videos about it on YouTube and stuff. But if you look at what was happening at those prisons, like there's some of the stuff that's happening right now. I don't think it's even going to come out for years from now. And like the ICE stuff is crazy. Like, they're hiring a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing.
Every time I think about this, not to poke a hole in your serious in here, but I'll lighten the mood a little bit. But the new South Park where Mr. Mackey joins ICE,
Yeah.
dude, like
Yeah.
I was just dying laughing at that. Like, South Park, honestly, like I have a lot of friends who are a little bit more pro-Trump, and they're just like, they can't stand South Park now. But I think what they're doing is absolutely hilarious. Like Baby Vance, like the whole like what do you mean, Satan? Like, it's like all that
Yeah.
stuff going on, and like Satan's living in the White House, and it's like basically Trump's boyfriend, and like just the way that they've done all that, honestly, is hilarious to me. Like, I think like we should be making fun of this stuff, and I feel like comedy helps lighten the mood a little bit. I feel like for a while it was almost like everyone was afraid to talk about politics, even in like a comedic way, you know? And I feel like that's kind of changing. And we're kind of going back to a little bit of normal in that sense, right? Where people are, I feel like we can kind of joke again about things. I feel like I can like make political jokes in public and not get like, you know, an angry mob forming, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like for a while it was just such a more of a conflagratory topic. I don't know, conflagratory. I don't
Inflammatory.
know, maybe inflammatory. I don't know the word I'm looking for is, but yeah, like it was just seems like so much more of a hot topic. Let's just say, and I feel like it is kind of we're getting to the sense of a bit of normalcy. If like politics are getting a little bit boring again, right? But Trudeau is kind of a sideshow in Canada. I feel like
Mm.
so. Oh, Northwest Coast in the chat saying the Korean American came to the U.S. at 7 years old. Like, that's wild to me. Like if you've lived in a country for like especially over 20 years and you've been like a citizen who's paying his taxes, like I don't
And you're a
understand.
veteran too. What the like?
Yeah,
What?
I
What
don't
is happening
understand
here? How is that
why
happening?
that's a
But
problem.
that's
But
showing
it's
how
crazy too
little.
because I was seeing these TikToks of these people saying they were rewriting our history by saying there was Sikh soldiers in World War II for Canada, and like I had never really thought about it myself until I went and looked into it. I'm like, this was actually there was a huge amount of Sikhs who actually fought for World War well, compared to the population in Canada at the time, who fought with Canada for Canada. You know what I mean? Like they're like so like our great grandfather came from our great great grandfather came from like Ireland, right? And like
Mm.
we're not so much different than the people who their great great grandfather came from India or came from China or Japan or any of these other countries that helped kind of build this country up, right? And I think we've just lost so much sight of that in general as well, right? I think we need to remind ourselves of that. And a lot of the thing too is that the Sikhs back in the 1940s didn't even have voting rights, even if they were like Canadian born. It was crazy.
One thing that's
Like,
freaked me out a little bit is I have seen kind of a little bit of a like I feel like there's a lot more, and I don't know, maybe it's all bots, but I feel like I see a lot more just openly racist people online right now, and people who are just like openly cruel.
I
Like
think people are
saying that
just
it's
looking for something to blame for certain problems. And I feel like, yeah, it has kind of like, I think that's always been there. I just think we went through a period where everyone was kind of forced and wasn't allowed to behave that way online. And then what
yeah,
happened
maybe.
is once you finally let, you know, Elon comes in, buys Twitter, makes X, you know, brings freedom of speech, whatever you want to call it these days. X is kind of a hot mess in my opinion, because of bots. It's almost like they opened the floodgates on this now, right? And now
Yeah,
they've like
yeah.
made martyrs out of people who speak that way and made it like not like I don't know the word is like almost
Well, it's a
it's like
losing
if you
strategy
force
too, right?
you know like the whole thing I think it was like Russia when they were talking about going through the era of the Bolsheviks, right? And they were saying that if like society's morality is like a pendulum, and if the government forces that morality in one direction, usually once that government loses their control or loses their momentum, whatever you want to call it, it swings back the other way 10 times harder or twice as
Yeah.
hard, right? I think that's kind of what we're seeing with that stuff is that when you had like Twitter before, like it was very left leaning, very heavily controlled. They were essentially meddling in our election, like, in American elections and possibly Canadian elections, who knows? But they were meddling in like
I don't
big
think.
affairs because people hadn't realized how big social media had become at that point, right? It wasn't until COVID, I think, did people realize how big of a media form social media was and how much it
That
was
was
affecting everybody and everybody's information circles.
We do have to remember too, though, that like Trump literally came up on Twitter in that era when it was that heavily policed, right? So like when we talk about them, rigging elections or whatever, I like obviously you didn't mean that, you didn't use a word that strong.
No, but they're swaying the
like,
elections,
that was
right? They're
the
swaying
same.
the elections in
It
my
was the
like
same
just by
algorithm that
controlling the information that's being exchanged, right? By saying you can't talk about this, or if you talk about this, we're gonna just downput you, and we're gonna basically shadow ban you or make it so that the algorithm won't promote
that's
your
what
post, right?
it's still like that on
It's
X
almost
right
like putting
now.
a muzzle. Yeah, well, I don't really like X personally. I feel like X is just like a ball of stress. Like I don't know how to explain it, but X is just there's so much
Yeah,
bots on there too. And these companies are incentivized to let bots just be bots because they make money off these accounts. Some of these
yeah,
bot
the bots
farms
pay
are paying
membership
for
fees.
enterprise accounts. They're paying for enterprise accounts like a
Yeah, yeah.
business. And they have
Well,
like
there's
50 to 100
governments.
bots, right?
there's governments involved in this. I mean, I used to go off about this a lot, like when we were streaming before too. But Russia, they literally have state funded troll accounts. Like people will have their
They're
own
ahead of the
little,
curve.
yeah.
They understood what was happening before we
It's
did.
it's
And I think
cyber warfare, right? And
yeah,
you think
and I
about
think
a lot of this stuff. I think that the way, I mean, if you want to just, I'll touch on it briefly, but like the Israel Palestine stuff, something that I'll say is like people think that Israel's controlling the media. Like I don't know how you get that idea.
oh, dude, I've heard talk about like open racism in public now, like just the way people have been towards like just the Jewish communities lately too. Like people who I never thought they'd like, 'cause
Yeah.
like to me, if I'm talking to friends of mine who I think are pretty intelligent people, right? And I feel like racism is just a reductive way to make sense of complicated matters. It's just like, oh, it's because they're this color or because they're this ethnicity. It's like, well, like that's just like a way to reduce the problem to make it more
Yeah.
simple so you can understand it better or rationalize it better, I guess, right? That's how I look at it. And there's people who I looked at who are pretty smart who have just kind of resorted to that. And I don't
Yeah.
understand why. Like they control the media, they control America, they control everything. It's all Israel. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like I don't understand how you can live in that kind of a bubble because it's like that's got to be a fucking hell on earth place to be. Like to me, I just look at the world as like super
Yeah.
unpredictable and if someone was controlling it, we'd probably have a much smoother process. But it's so crazy and hectic. I don't think there's anyone who's got their hand on the
Yeah.
wheel, right? There's
Well,
there's
is
like
that Alan
300
Moore
people
quote
fighting over the wheel.
where he says that the world's rudderless and that's scarier than thinking that there's like a cabal in charge of it, right? But what I was just going to say is that like I think that part of the reason that conflict had so much traction online is because there was people from other countries, obviously not just in Palestine itself, but like Iran and like Lebanon and Syria and stuff. Like I don't know if Syria is funding this type of stuff, but these countries are paying people to go around and talk about this stuff, right? They're funding creators online to argue their talking points. Because like there is a worldview where Israel is the bad guy, right? And if you can get people into your worldview where that is true, then they just take it for granted.
Majority of the world looks at
it's not even a debatable topic.
Yeah. Majority of the world looks at America as the bad guy, right? Like if you look at population wise, like there's like 1 billion people in China, like nearly 1 billion in India. Like you like half the world does not live in Europe or North America or Australia. Half the world is in Africa and Asia. I think just Asia alone is like half the global population. Something crazy like that. So, and I think a lot of them, like especially like if you watch like Chinese movies and stuff, like they really don't have a very nice opinion about the American. Like they feel about the Americans how America feels about the Chinese these days, right? Like, and I think that they're like probably a little bit, probably both feel a little bit. I don't know. I feel like tensions there have gone up a bit, but I think it's just because people feel less secure than they did, right? And I think COVID kind of rattled people out of this comfortable stasis they were in, right? And now everyone looks at the world as so much more unpredictable, much scarier, much more volatile. Anything can happen. And like I'm even starting to look at it that way too, right? Like how close are we to World War III, right? But they've been saying World War III was around the corner since the 50s, right?
Dude,
like
I'm like I used to kind of scoff at a lot of people who would say stuff like that a lot. And right now, it's actually really scary right now. There's like there was a drone shot down in Ireland that were following Zelensky, and they arrived at the place where his plane was supposed to land before he got there. And I think they shot them down or something, and they don't know where they came. It's probably Russia, right? But like even just that happening, it's like an intimidation thing, right? Like they're testing where can we do stuff without getting blamed for it. Yeah, exactly. You're probing for insecurities, right? And that's what they were saying is they had to up their security after that because they were like shocked that it was even able to happen, right?
Well, Ireland's got a whole whack of issues going on too, right? Like Ireland's been not in the best spot. Like people are worried about us going far left, but no, Ireland went pretty. Like that one leader they had was honestly pretty racist, and like I've seen the way he was and the post he made after getting out of office too. It's kind of crazy, but what they've been going through. The only reason why people were like, there were people saying Conor McGregor should be president or prime minister.
That's the only thing I know about like, I was like, politics,
dude, like it was just because it's because they had a guy who was honestly worse than Trudeau, and he was Muslim, I believe, and he was like anti-Christian, anti-white, a lot of the time. And like I feel like you're in a predominantly Christian white nation, and you somehow became the leader, usually due to because a lot of people were just probably like people like when you have these crazy leaders, they don't start off crazy, right? They get into office, and it's almost like they kind of show they're crazy when it's a little bit too late, right? But Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's
You
that's kind of
surround
where like
yourself with yes men too, right? I think when an administration's, that's what happened with Trudeau. I think that's what
yeah,
happens.
you know,
That's what's happening
speaking
with
of
Trump right now too.
speaking of old movies, dude, like Die Hard, the bad guys are just a bunch of Germans. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Oh
so
yeah.
funny. Like it's just like Hans Gruber,
Isn't it like
it's
Severus Snape?
yeah, Alan Rickman, dude, he's a great actor, man. It's kind of sad he passed away. I think like 5 years ago or so he passed away.
Was that his
Um,
first big role, the Die Hard one?
I think no, he was in a lot of stuff. He was also in the Pride and Prejudice movie. He was in a lot of stuff that was pretty big in Britain, I believe, and he was a stage actor too. So he did a lot of like musicals and stuff like that as well. Uh, but yeah. Anyways, pretty much
Did
it's
you
all
get any
pretty wild,
questions from
right?
the chat?
No, I don't think we did. But if anyone's got any questions, we answer them. We'll just read out the chat
Oh
here.
yeah, Charlene, the
Um,
Bill C9 thing. I was looking at that. I mean, if it actually gets passed through as it is, it could
Yeah,
potentially
that's the
be
one
bad.
thing
I don't
I'm
like any
I'm
stuff
nervous
like
about
that, but
is anytime government wants to control and moderate speech. But the problem is too is we have these like growing. We were talking about anti-Semitism stuff, and that presence growing, and people being more openly racist online and stuff like that. I feel like that kind of gives them fuel to try and sell
yeah.
that stuff. And look what's going on in the UK right now. Like there was that case that I don't, Tucker Carlson was all over it. I'm not a big Tucker fan personally, but I watched it because he was arguing with Pierce Morgan, and he's trying to get him to say the F word or like the F word, not the
Yeah, yeah.
FUCK, but the other one,
The
the one that
slur,
rhymes with
yeah.
bag. He was trying to get him to say that
Thanks.
and I
Thanks for
kind of
letting
get
us
where
know
he's
which one
coming
it
from.
was.
Well, I just feel like I have to specify. But like basically, I understand where Tucker's coming from, but at the same time, I'm like, he's going about it in such a bombastic, aggressive way where it's like, hey, dude, like there's an easier way to prove a point here. But the fact that
Yeah,
there's
I
some
don't know.
woman getting jailed for a text because they can just basically monitor everything you're texting and messaging online now is wild. And I think the problem too is that every time there's some new form of communication, like think about radio, think about TV, there's always people trying to regulate it, police it, take control of it, right? And I feel like we're starting to see that with the internet now. They're trying to
Yeah.
take that medium and regulate it, control it. We're already pretty regulated, I feel like, than we used to be. Like it's not the 4chan days anymore. But I feel like if I can send my friend a message and the government's just spying on me, watching for trigger words and possibly place me on house arrest because I said the wrong word, or what if I have a typo or something, right? Like what are they gonna hold that against me?
There are
So it's
things
just
there are things you
like
can
it's just
say on I
wild.
think any platform right now that'll set off some kind of alarm. Like if you start talking about
Yeah.
like
Well, yeah, our
really
dad got banned from Twitter for making some comments. Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
that was after Elon bought it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey James, by the way, I don't think I said hey when you came into the chat there. Um, yeah, any censorship bills I'm not a big fan of. I'm a big fan of freedom of speech, right to carry, all that kind of stuff. And I hope that
I am
Carney
too, yeah.
shares those values. I hope that
I
this
just
is
hope
the
it's not a
problem. I don't have
priority
high
for
hopes,
him.
right? I don't have high hopes for this liberal party in those areas. And I feel like that's where, besides the CBC, because honestly, I don't think most people are getting all their information from CBC these days. I really don't.
My personal feeling is I think that we should just increase transparency online for big media accounts. Because I mean, imagine if you could get broadcast channels to your TV back in the day that were coming from anonymous sources. You didn't know what country they were coming from. You didn't know who was funding them. You didn't know
great entertainment.
like anything about it. That's what's online right now, right? Like you have all these creators, you don't know where they're getting any, like I was saying, those like the Saudis and Iran and stuff, they do fund creators who come to America and talk to the public, right? Like that's a super easy to do. It's not even a difficult, like you just donate on Twitch or whatever, even like I don't know. I think there's a lot of weird things. Like I think that I like that the Twitter and Instagram now, I don't know what other social media platforms have done it. You can actually click on people and see where the account was made. It's a small thing. People can, they can use a VPN or whatever and hide it. But at the very least, it provides like a basic level of transparency on where the account's from, because there was a lot of these like big MAGA accounts that were like based out of India and North Africa, right?
People in India are just like, make America great again.
Yeah.
Probably
No, that's
kind of offense to deal with that, actually.
There's a guy in Ontario who was running a huge MAGA account who was talking about it. He was like,
Yeah,
getting
well,
interviewed
I don't
about
know.
it. He
It's
was
just
just open about it.
there's people fanning both sides of the fire, right? They're trying to
Yeah.
they see some tension in our country and they want to pour gasoline all over it, right? They want that
Yeah.
tension to build and burst and become the hottest topic at the dinner table, right? And I think really like it is crazy how much politics is a hot topic these days. Like even doing like what I do for a living, I've been advised not because we do a political channel. I've been told, oh, you shouldn't be crossing the wires there because politics are such a hot topic, especially in like more creative circles these days. And I'm starting to see it for sure. But I hope we can get past that. Like I hope that one day this isn't what it's not like you're not going to like cause a riot because you share your opinions. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's kind of where we've been. Like I know it's been an overstatement, but like for you could literally state a political opinion in public and cause big issues over that. Whereas most people back in the day probably would have just called you a nerd, and most people didn't give a crap. You know what I mean? Like they were just like, "Oh, you pay attention to that stuff." Like that was where most people were. But I feel like now everybody is kind of there. I don't think the West will separate. Personally, I just don't. I don't think it's good for us. I think, I understand where people get frustrated and feel like back east is controlling the elections, but this election that just happened, it was actually Vancouver that decided for Carney. Like, I don't know if when we watched the election, that's what they were saying was such a big deal, is that the election was so close that BC kind of did decide the election and they voted more liberal. And that's why Carney won. If BC had gone more conservative in the last federal election, the Conservatives might have won the minor majority, the minority. Yeah. I think CBC has been critical in keeping Canadians to boycott U.S., etc. Yeah, even then, like I don't think that's the right way. I think it is kind of wild that you go to a BC liquor store and you can't even buy American products. Like I think that's just wild to me. Like I feel like I don't feel
buy
like
anything from America
they should
just because
be
of the
forcing you
duties
into
now.
that. Like if that should be your choice, right? And maybe it was just an excuse for them to get it off the shelves. Because maybe it was going to cost them more than it was worth, and no one was going to buy it anyways because they're going to be throwing a bunch of it out because they're going to have to. It was just going to cause them a lot of chaos. Why they did it, but I thought it was kind of wild. You just like go to buy like maybe your favorite American liquor or whatever, and it's like, oh, buy Canadian. It's like, all right, who the hell are you to tell me to buy Canadian right now? You know what I mean? Like this is a liquor store. Like you're not like an activist. Like what is this? You know what I mean? Like I think that kind of logic is not good. I know there's an argument for it. I know people say it's good for the economy, all that stuff. But I'm just saying, in a free country, you should be able to buy what you want to buy. If it's especially,
I agree. I wish somebody
would
would
want to stop carrying it, sure. But I just find it's kind of like buy Canadian. It's like, I don't want to buy Canadian now. You tell me to buy. Like I still bought Canadian. Like all the stuff I drank anyways was Canadian. Like I drink Old Style, right, which is from Saskatchewan, I believe. You know what I mean? Like that's like my number one go-to. So it's like I was already buying Canadian before all this, anyways. But
yeah, I don't know. I think that the stuff with the trade thing, I mean, it's like you said, I want to be able to buy what I want to buy from wherever I want to buy it because it's supposed to be a free country. And the fact that that's even a contention right now is ridiculous. And I 100% attribute it to Trump because that's where it started, right? Like he's the one who started the trade war. I don't know if top-down rules about which liquor people are allowed to buy from or whatever. I think it was
I'm just using an example, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's... Well, no, I was just going to say is that I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but I think that there's definitely an argument that if one country's economy is trying to attack yours, that you should not just take that on the chin. If you don't have to. If you have to, you just, then whatever, you just bend over, I guess. But I mean, I think that like
that's what we Canadians do best, apparently. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody likes to make fun of this. I think it's cringe too. But the elbows up thing, right? Like I understand the sentiment.
I forgot about that.
I know. Yeah. No.
Let's get Mike Myers
on Twitter. They bring it up all the time.
Let's get Mike Myers and Carney next to a hockey rink. And dude, honestly, what's really funny was CBC made fun of that. Yeah. And I forgot that guy's name, but he was from Kids on the Block or Kids in the Hall, that like the Canadian comedy sketch show. With Mark McPhinney and a couple others. I forget his name, but they all did cameos on like Corner Gas, right? And he does such a good Carney impression, and it's hilarious. Like I'm not like the other guy does the Polyev impression. It's passable, but it's like almost like way too exaggerated to the point where it's like overacted almost. And then you have this guy come with the Carney impression. I'm like just spot on, like just right on the money.
Polyev owned it the other day. He had that guy on stage with him. They dressed up as Polyev. They like met. They were like on stage and they like did like a little bit together. I don't know if you saw that, but I think he's trying to play friendlier with that side of the media, right? Because they do make an attempt to strike at both sides, right? Like they're not just going to only go after.
Well, that's what it should be, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be so one-sided. And I think that's what I'm starting to. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Is I think we're starting to see that loosen up a little bit, right? In Canada, at least. And I hope that it continues down that trend to the point where talking about politics isn't something you have to whisper in the coffee shop. You can just, well, not like everyone hangs in the coffee shops anymore, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's like,
yeah.
It shouldn't be so contentious. We should be able to have calm discussions, and without having calm discussions about conflicting opinions, I don't think we can really progress truly. Like I feel like we're just going to be stuck in this like
each other too,
us
right?
versus them loop.
I think that's the biggest thing, is that when you completely stop talking to people because of political disagreements, you stop even understanding what they want. And I think you were mentioning this thing earlier.
Oh, see you later, James. Good luck on your fishing, ice fishing. That's cool. He's ice fishing. Listen to us. Nice.
Oh, that's dope. No, yeah, I can't even remember exactly what you brought up, but I was going to say that. No, I lost it. It's gone now. I can't.
That's right. I interrupted you to say bye. James distracted me with ice fishing, saying his lines are popping. That's cool. He's, what a Canadian, man. He's listening to us talk about politics while ice fishing. That's awesome. But yeah, like Northwest Coast saying he wants Chinese electric cars. All right, buddy.
I don't.
Maybe you can buy a Tesla then. Ironically.
I think China's evil, dude. And their government's funding those electric cars in order to beat out the American market, right? Like that's an intentional thing. That's why Biden brought those EV incentives to America, and then I think they're gone now. I don't know. I think everything being so backwards thinking, like just opposing stuff broadly and without a good reason for it is stupid. Like I think just Trump's like so anti solar or wind power or whatever, and it's like, if the market's going that way, you're not supposed to tell people what they're.
I just think that the last people in power were trying to make, or not, that's the wrong way to put it, but there was an incentive to promote clean, green energy for a while. And I feel like the technology quite wasn't where it needed to be yet. And it's like what's going on with AI right now is people are trying so hard to sell it, but it's like, okay, like this isn't where it needs to be at, right? Same with electric cars. It's like, we need a lot more research and development and money, honestly, going to
the Chinese
how
electric
to build
cars are pretty
better
good.
Versions of these. But
I think the Chinese electric cars really are.
Take this town for example. I'm in a northern Canadian town. It's -20 Celsius right now. Okay, -20 Celsius. And
so you're telling me the Chinese electric car won't work there?
No. Hang on. Okay,
you're probably
there's for some reason all these businesses around here are building charging stations, and I'll tell you right now, it's a pretty small town. There's like 4, maybe 5, and they're all Teslas. And there's more charging stations than electric cars in this town right now. And it's like, I don't know if there's some kind of kickback or tax incentive going on with it, but I'm like, why are we building these? Like, it gets to -40. These chargers probably aren't even going to work, right? Like, your batteries are going to die very
I don't know.
quickly.
Like, I don't know. Maybe they do have the technology if they're installing them that far up north. I have no idea.
They need to have some kind of, like someone was mentioning that they need systems in electric cars that are going to be heat generating, right? Because these electric cars don't generate nearly as much heat as a combustion engine, right? So it's just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Even tourists, like we don't really have that. We don't really get that many up here, honestly. So like it's just this weird thing. It's like there's so many. I think there's like a total of like 4 or 5 different stations of 4 to 6 chargers. And I'll tell you right now. I was
going to say now.
Sorry, yeah, I'll stop cutting you off and ranting about electric cars.
No, that's okay. I'll bounce back to this topic. I was just going to say, because you said something earlier about how you think that racism is like an easy way to answer a complicated question. And I think that happens on a lot of different levels. Like I think that there was I don't know, it's getting a little better, I think, but there is a lot of people on the left or in the liberal camp who, they'll just kind of shove it all off as if these people are just a bunch of racist, bigot, misogynist, Andrew Tate loving Trump people or whatever, right? And that's again, I think, an easy answer to a complicated question. Like I think that and I was bringing this up in relation to us saying that you need to talk to people in order to fully understand where they're coming from. And I think that when we kind of just like caricaturize people in our head, or we get all of our impressions, like all of my time watching conservatives is, I'm watching a liberal watch Ben Shapiro and then talk about how stupid Ben Shapiro is. That's not a real I'm not really engaging with that content the way it's actually meant to be engaged with, right? And I'm not getting a good idea of what these people really believe. And I think if you put yourself in that position, you don't actually know what the other side is thinking, or you're kind of always, it's like we're acting like all that Democrats care about is like LGBTQ and climate change. That's not really the case, right? Like if you go and talk to people who are like more informed, that's not the plane they're operating on. They have more complicated reasons for supporting that party. And there's been a big fight. I think that the floor crossers, as much as it makes people upset, the conservatives coming over to the liberal thing, that's a good thing in a sense, just that there's enough crossover there that people are willing to do that. And I think that that's a sign that there's like some common ground that we can agree on. And I think that that's why I think that Poilievre, his reaction should be less anger and more like kind of gauging the temperature, feeling out.
I think it's more snarkiness than anger, though. It's just snarkiness. Yeah. And I kind of like the snarkiness. And I think that's the thing where I said, like, he doesn't think he can keep his mouth shut sometimes. And I think it's done him good, but it's also hurt him in certain areas. But I hate to cut you off here, but we do have to wrap this up. But before we go,
I was just going to say,
I just want to say, we've been gone for a while. We know that, and I'm really glad to see everyone who tuned in tonight. Honestly, I said this all. We might not get any of our regulars back because it's been so long. But we're happy to see all of you. James, Northwest Coast, Charlene, Devils Do. I remember you as well. Everybody who used to come here all the time. We were had more people watching us per stream and stuff because we were streaming so much. But now what we're going to do is we're going to be trying to stream Friday nights just because that works best for our schedules. Like when we first started this channel, I was off on an injury, and now I'm back to work, basically running my own business and stuff. So it's a much different situation. But now we're kind of like at a point where I feel like I can kind of start doing this again. So we definitely want to be, streaming more and growing GroundedTV more and stuff like that. So we're going to try to be back every Friday evening, basically just once a week for the time being.
It might not be every Friday, but like at least twice a month.
See, Saul's we're trying twice. Okay,
I don't want to set people's expectations too high. This has been You guys,
me and Saul have discussions. Well, yeah, we did, but like we did it. We did it.
That's true. So, that's true. Maybe, I'm
an optimist. I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Okay, next Friday.
The Molson's half full.
I'll be trying to write more stuff down to talk about too. This wasn't better. Yeah. Anyways, good introduction. Happy to see some people back. This was fun. We'll be back next week. God willing.
I'm saying I'll put me and Saul have to talk outside stream, but more than likely next week. If not that, then the worst case scenario the next week. If worst case scenario not that, the next week, and then
I'm usually good for Friday nights. This works for me really well. Yeah. Okay. Right. Have a good one, guys. See ya.